She couldn't even reply to a simple text anymore. It wasn't that she didn't want to. It wasn't that she was angry or upset with anyone. It was just that everything felt like too much. It felt like every message was one more thing demanding her energy, and she had none left to give. At first, it was just a few texts she let slide. "Oh, I'll get to it later," she'd tell herself. But later never came. The messages piled up, one after another, until her phone became a constant reminder of how much she was avoiding. It wasn't that her friends weren't important to her. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was just that every conversation, no matter how small, felt like a chore. Every "hey, how's it going?" felt like an invitation to explain everything, even when she didn't know how to explain it herself. She found herself staring at her phone screen, reading the messages over and over, wondering if she should reply, wondering if she was being rude, wondering if they'd be disappointed or worse, if they'd stop reaching out altogether. But the more she stared, the more the words blurred together, and the more she felt her energy draining away. It wasn't always like this. She used to be the one who always replied quickly, the one who stayed on top of everything. She used to love talking to people, catching up, sharing little moments. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. She didn't know when it happened, but it felt like her ability to connect had vanished. Her mind was tired from the constant noise, tired from always trying to keep up with everyone. Tired from putting on the smile, the "I'm fine" face, even when she wasn't. The truth was, she didn't know how to tell anyone how she felt. She didn't even know how to explain it to herself. The fatigue wasn't physical. It wasn't like she was running marathons every day. It was deeper, quieter. It was emotional exhaustion that no one could see. It was a weight she carried in her chest that no amount of sleep could shake off. But people couldn't see it. They saw the unanswered texts, the missed calls, and they assumed she was ignoring them. They started to wonder if they'd done something wrong, if their jokes were too corny, their conversations too dull, their presence too bothersome. And then there were the times when her friends checked in on her, when they asked if everything was okay, when they reached out, wanting to understand, wanting to help, wanting to remind her that she mattered, that she was loved. And even those gestures, well, she couldn't bring herself to reply to those either. She told herself, "I'll reply tomorrow. I'll feel better." But tomorrow came, and she still didn't know what to say. The silence felt safer. The silence didn't ask anything from her. It didn't require her to explain herself or open up in ways she wasn't ready to. But the silence also made her feel more isolated. It made her feel like she was disappearing, like she was drifting further away from the world, from the people who cared about her. And that thought terrified her. She didn't want to be the one who shut people out. She didn't want to be the friend who seemed distant or uninterested. But she didn't know how to fight the exhaustion that had taken over her. She didn't know how to show up for anyone when she could barely show up for herself. And so the texts went unanswered. The calls went unreturned, the distance grew, and with it, the whispers started. What happened to her? Why doesn't she reply? Is she ghosting us? If she could have explained it, if she could have voiced the turmoil within, if she could have shown them the invisible weight that was crushing her, maybe things would have been different. Maybe they'd have understood. But she couldn't. All she could do was watch as the messages stacked up, each one a tiny crack in the fragile structure she'd built around herself. As the days turned into weeks, the silence became a heavy blanket, suffocating her under its layers of unspoken words. It felt like a betrayal of everything she once valued, of all the connections she'd cherished. And yet, despite the guilt that gnawed at her, she couldn't bring herself to reach out, to apologize, to explain. It wasn't intentional, she wanted to say. It isn't personal, it's just me. But those words stayed trapped inside her, locked away in the prison of her exhaustion. She became a shadow of her former self, shrinking further into herself, hoping to disappear, hoping that maybe if she tried hard enough, the world would forget about her, at least for a moment. And slowly, very slowly, life went on without her. The laughter echoed faintly in the distance, the conversations shifted to other topics, the memories faded, and new experiences took center stage. For a while, it felt as though the silence had become her only companion, her only confidant. It was a lonely existence, one that gnawed at her soul, reminding her of all that she was missing, of all that she'd stopped being a part of. The irony wasn't lost on her. She used to be known for her vibrant spirit, her eagerness to connect, her ability to light up a room with her infectious laughter. Now she was remembered for her absence, for the void she'd created in their lives. But even in the depths of her despair, a tiny flicker of hope refused to be extinguished. A sliver of determination, buried deep within her, stirred to life. She knew she couldn't stay here forever. She owed it to herself, to her friends, to the world, to try, to reach out, to reconnect, to rediscover herself. It wouldn't be easy. The road to recovery would be long and arduous, filled with setbacks and moments of weakness. But she was determined to tread that path, to reclaim the pieces of herself that the silence had scattered. The first step, she knew, would be the hardest, breaking the silence, reaching out, letting the words stumble forth, even if they trembled and faltered. It wouldn't erase the past, but it would pave the way for healing, for understanding, for forgiveness. So with a deep breath she began to type, the words slow and hesitant at first, then gaining momentum, carrying with them the weight of apologies, explanations, affirmations. As the message reached its end, a sense of relief washed over her. It wasn't a complete recovery, not yet, but it was a start, a promise to herself, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. Slowly but surely, she began to piece together the fragments of her life, setting new goals, pursuing old interests, engaging in the world once more. The road ahead remained uncertain, but she no longer felt compelled to walk it alone. She reached out to therapists, joined support groups, engaged in open and honest conversations with those who understood what it meant to navigate the labyrinth of mental health. With each passing day, she shed a little more of the weight that had been dragging her down, allowing herself to heal, to grow, to evolve. The scars remained, but they became a part of her story, a reminder of the darkness she'd overcome, the silence she'd conquered, the friendships she'd rekindled. And so, life went on, not as it was before, but as it was meant to be, filled with challenges, yes, but also with growth, resilience, and most importantly, connection. If you're struggling to connect with others or feeling socially drained, you're not alone. Here are some simple ways to start feeling a little better. 1. Give yourself permission to rest. Don't feel guilty for needing time to recharge. It's okay to take a break from social obligations. 2. Limit social media. Constant digital engagement can add to the burnout. Try reducing your social media time to give your mind a break. 3. Set boundaries. It's okay to say, "I'm not up for a conversation right now." You don't have to explain why. Respect your own needs.